how do you film a travel vlog in the rain? Oh, a cottage, now we're talking. Wow, that is impressive. Wow, that's kind of insane. Hi, I'm Justine, the nerdy half of the Breakaway Bravehearts. And today I'm stuck inside. It's raining out there, it's grey, it's cold, it's pretty miserable. So we can't go to the places that we wanted to go to. However, Cadw has a virtual visits website, so we're going to try and get to a whole bunch of places without actually going there. I've never done a virtual tour before, mixed minds about it. Let's work it out together and see how it goes. So Cadw is actually a service of the Welsh Government, and its role is to protect, conserve, promote Welsh environmental history. And the word Cadw actually means to keep, to protect. So that's what it says on the tin. So it's all on the Cadw website. You head up to visit, up the top there in the menu, and click on virtual visits. And there's a huge range actually to choose from. So we've got medieval forts, Neolithic tombs, religious relics, Roman remains, historic homes, and industrial hubs, which sounds a little weird, but the industrial historical period of Wales was actually hugely important to the development of the nation as a whole. So I'm actually going to check some of those out as well. You can do it on smartphone or tablet. You can even VR it if you've got the VR headset. That would be cool. That would be awesome. I don't have one of those. We're just going to walk through. I want to start in the historic homes. They look spectacular, so let's start there. Let's try Castle Coch. Coch. I think that's how you say it. So I'm clicking on the little white dots to take me places. So we've got blue dots and we've got red dots, and these are the information points. The red dot is Welsh and the blue dot is English. So you can take your pick there. I'm going to need English, sadly. So it says it's a blend of high Victorian Gothic fantasy and medieval masonry. Oh, so it's actually one of these castles that's been just recreated by really wealthy people. This is kind of like Lovenberg in Germany. If you click up there, you can go see that. Look at the roof. During the Victorian period, a few people got very, very wealthy off the backs of others, and one was the Marquis of Bute. And he obviously liked medieval times, so he bought himself this old castle which was in ruins and had it rebuilt in that style. So these are Victorian recreations of their fantasy of that, what that medieval world was like. There's a lot of work gone into this. This is pretty intense. I like this setup with the little kind of bar stools by the windows. It's saying that actually Bute lost interest in it and didn't even end up staying there in the later half of the century. And some of the rooms were never even finished. It was literally just his plaything that he got bored with. Okay, there's the floor plans. So the grey dots are giving me the floor plans. I need to get out of here though. Let's go into this room. Wow, look, oh my God, look at this. Okay, that's insane. That's in his house. Wow. That's pretty intense. It's really cool actually. I really like that. That is like so in your face. I am so wealthy. If he wanted to make a statement, he's done it here. That's for sure. What are these people? The three fates of Greek mythology. So I haven't quite worked out who William Burgess is, but his name keeps coming up in these plaques. But I seem to be going it out of order. So I'm getting the story out of sequence. I guess when you're there in person, you would start at the beginning and walk through, but I'm being a little bit random. So the message isn't clear at the moment in terms of how the story goes. But it seems like William Burgess might be the designer, perhaps. I'm going to have to find that out. That's amazing. Look at just the detail even around the fireplace. Gosh. All the paneling, wallpaper. Aesop's Fables. There's a quack frog to the left called a quack frog. Look, he's got medicine in his hand. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I need to find out who William Burgess was. We've got pictures up here, but in this virtual tour, it's not telling me who they are. And a coat of arms here as well, which obviously is the family coat of arms, I'm guessing. Here we go. This is the information that I needed. This now makes sense with the rest of it. So the house was owned by the third Marquis of Bute, and he inherited a lot of money. Burgess wasn't wealthy, he couldn't compete with that, but he was an architect and a designer and a civil engineer, and a very successful one. The two men met in 1865 and they bonded over their love of medieval architecture and art. And not too long after they met, Burgess wrote a report for Bute explaining how you could recreate this in this castle in Cardiff, and Bute took him on, and therefore this is what we have. So there's all different functions down here. View plan, or the doll's house. So now we've got like a bird's eye view. I want to have a look up here. This looks cool. What's going on here? Wow, that is impressive. Wow, that's kind of insane. There's obviously somebody's bedroom, somebody important. Let's see what it says. But whose bedroom is this? I left my top window open and now it's actually raining on me while I'm still inside, so I'm just going to shut that. Rich reds and golds. Crystal bed knobs, no less. When you look at it in the 3D, it's not as bright as what this photo is. I mean, obviously they've got the lighting going on here. And so if you're there in person, I don't know if you get that impression either. Yeah, it just doesn't have that brightness, that goldness, but it's spectacularly impressive. This is Lady Bute's bedroom, and it's to do with the tale of the Arabian Nights. On the ceiling, there's monkeys and pomegranates. Apparently, Lord Bute disapproved of the monkeys. He thought that was taking it a little step too far, a little bit over the top. It's impressive. I love the design. That is just beautiful. Her basin, her bathroom's got like castle shape design. This is insane. Wow. Finding that some of the plaques are kind of in odd places. This one that I just opened up here. What happens when a patron of unlimited wealth meets an architect of boundless imagination? I feel like that should have been it right at the beginning to set the scene. So it's odd that it's here up the top, unless I was supposed to start at the top and work my way down. But the information's not huge. Like, I like to learn about the people and their personalities and the stories of their lives, what was important to them, how they lived their daily lives. But I'm more just kind of getting the architecture and the furniture. There's nothing about Lady Bute herself. We've learnt a little bit about the wealthy guy and his friend the architect, but nothing about Lady Bute. You can really zoom in and get in close and see that detail, which, look, you can even see like where it's coming off and stuff. Wonder if they're going to repair that or just leave that. Don't know. Aha. Let's try going downstairs. That looks tricky to get down physically if I was there in person. I'm glad they've got the railings on there. Wow, she really was like locked away in a tower, wasn't she? Smaller bedroom. Oh, it's got a bath. Wow, it's still like really ornate though. Wow, look at the roof. Love the way that chimney's done. That's beautiful. Wow. Yeah, I'm definitely out of order. Like this one starts with just 3 years later, and I don't know 3 years later than what. So there's definitely supposed to be an order, but there's no numbers, so you don't know where you're supposed to start. So this is Lord Bute's bedroom, and they're saying it's a lot more subdued than Lady Bute's. Yeah, it's still pretty impressive though. Apparently there's a trapdoor in the roof, not sure what that's about, but there's also one in the floor, and that's where supplies were brought up. And that's so that he had this feeling of controlling his tower from above. Decorative ceiling is supposed to remind him of a medieval banqueting hall, which it does. I mean, that's, yeah, you'd get that impression. It's a little busy for me. Not to my taste. Wow, look at that though. Look at that. Wow. Around the top of the fireplace there. That's incredible. Tiny little bed compared to his wife's. Haha, I found the loo. Wow, look at that. Oh my gosh, indoor plumbing. Surely that is the height of luxury at their time. That's impressive. Guests would have been impressed by that for sure. We're going downstairs now. The winch room. Okay, I don't know what a winch room is. We've got to check this out. We've got a fireplace. We've got presumably a winch. What are we winching? We're winching up the drawbridge, the portcullis. We've got murder holes in here like you would find in a original castle, and he recreated the portcullis, the winch, everything like it would have been at that medieval period, with the fireplace so that he can imagine boiling the hot oil to pour down his murder holes. That's pretty insane. That's fanboy going extreme. That's crazy. Here's his winch. is just his big plaything. His very expensive cosplay holiday home. This is one place I would like to see physically. So getting down to Cardiff is a bit of a trip. So given that this was one that was going to be really tricky for me to get to, I'm glad that I've tried this on the virtual tour. But there's still more to do. What's next? So we've checked out the historic homes. Let's check out the industrial hub. Now I'm guessing you say this Blaenafon. The F is like a V sound. Blaenafon. So in the 18th and 19th century, Wales was basically transformed. It became like an economic hub for the United Kingdom. Coal mines, ironworks, metal smelters, and it just changed the whole nation from a rural community to a really industrialised society. But the wealth wasn't always shared equally, and it wasn't always a nice lifestyle or a healthy living for those that actually contributed to making that wealth. So I'm actually really interested to see what information I'm going to get from this tour when I go around. That would be a model of what the whole centre would have looked like. So it was a pretty big deal. There was a lot involved there. It was a huge area. Like you can imagine half the village working here. So we're talking 1787 this ironworks was built. So there was coal, limestone and iron ore in the ground. So that's what this was taking advantage of to create the ironworks. So it meant there was a huge investment in the area around. There was horse-drawn railways. They had to build canals. They bought mines, quarries, just totally transformed the landscape. And of course, people. So houses, shops, the whole area would have had an influx of population very quickly. This one's a little bit harder to navigate. There's no little white dots, so I can't actually go inside the ironworks, but wow, look at that. 1787 was when it originally was built, and then by the 1860s, it had actually started to go into decline. So you're not even talking about 100 years. This was like an intense boom and then a deflation. It's crazy. We're only talking about 100 years. It's still there now, but completely like in ruins. It's only actually all the time and effort that went into building that, destroying the environment around it, and now it's sitting there doing nothing for such a short-lived little boom. Wow. We really don't think things through, do we? Stone furnaces, stone towers of furnace 4 and furnace 5. Yellow fire brick lining against the cliff. The outer stonework was robbed in 1911 to build a church. So that's recycling. Repurposing, you got to do what you got to do. The low walls in the front mark the former cast houses where molten iron ran out, while wagons of hot slag were carried away on railway lines. Okay, there's a lot in that sentence, because I don't know about you, like I'm a visual person. I want to see the people there. What are they? I mean, it sounds like a volcano. There's molten iron running out here. How is that controlled? I'm guessing there's no health and safety. Balance tower. A lift. That's impressive. Powered by the weight of water. That's pretty cool. It was built in 1839. But the designer got criticised for overspending. Considering like by the 1860s it was no longer in use, then they might have had a point. It lifts up the wagons. So this would take the wagons from the lower ground to the upper ground, all powered by water. That's really clever. And look, it's wet. It's got puddles. It's been raining there too. Over here, look, we haven't been in this building. What have we got here? Oh, a cottage. Now we're talking. 1840s cottage. Yes, this is what we want. Brilliant. Gosh, a little bit different from the historic home we just looked at. Still got everything you need. And it looks nice and cozy. But there's no information. It's supposed to give us info. Looks like you can't go in. You just look from the outside through the doors. Let's see if there's any other entrance. No, I can't get out. I can't get out. View the dollhouse. Try and get in another room. Control or right click and drag to rotate. Okay, we've got 2 beds in this room. Love the decor. It's newspapers. Brilliant. Well, to keep you warm and something to read when you can't sleep at night. Genius. What have we got over here? There's another little bed. Probably, yeah, a child's bed. There's a cot there. The doll. It looks like if you visit, there are some information plaques on the wall. Let's have a look. No, it's still not giving us any information though. It just says go out. So we're not getting any info from these. Normally the blue and the red give us a lot of information, but we're not getting any from this one. Another bedroom here, so quite a few people living in here. So probably, I don't know whether it's a family, a large family, or I imagine it's the workers' cottage, right? If there's a child's bed there, there's probably several families living in this workers' cottage. But I don't know. If I was there, I'd be able to read those panels, but the information here is just not, I can't click on it. It's not giving me anything, which is a shame because that's the bit I'm really interested in. There's the bedroom downstairs. Jeans. They won't be jeans because jeans weren't invented until 1873 in the US. But denim jeans weren't popular outside the US until after World War II. They're most likely just cotton trousers or wool trousers. They would have worn heavy shirts, smocks, and probably leather aprons as they're covering their protection. There's his smocks. I'm loving the little touches in here, the little hat on the chair and stuff. Not giving me any information. So this one doesn't look like it's finished or wasn't proof checked or something, but that gives us a little bit more of an idea of how people lived and worked. Can you imagine that? All living together in this one cottage, spending your entire day with this molten ore, the smells, the noise, in the air, you know, how do you breathe? Yeah, not fun. But food on your tables, able to feed your kids. Okay, but that's the only ironworks. That's the only industrial one. So that's a shame. I really wanted to learn a little bit more about that part of Welsh history. But that's okay. There is a lot more to learn. Let's go and see what's going on with the Roman remains. So the Romans were here really early on in the early ADs. They came in across Britain, of course. They had a hard time getting across the mountains. And the Welsh were very, very strong, and it was hard for the Romans to make a real impact here. So what am I looking at? It's circular. Wow, look at that. So what would this be used for? It's an amphitheatre, of course. So what I already know of an amphitheatre is that this is going to be about entertainment, right? This is about gladiators. So these are likely to be seated areas. You're going to have your horses, your gladiators coming in through here. So this one was around about 80 AD, and it can hold around about 6,000 spectators. The purpose of these was just to reinforce the power of the Romans. And so the people that normally would have been here would have been the wealthy Romans, the military families, but they would have invited some local families just when they wanted to just impress upon them exactly how powerful they were. I've made another video about the little that I know about Welsh history. I've popped that up there for you if you're interested. So apparently this was one of the most largest and impressive fortresses in Europe, and it was the headquarters for the Augustan Legion. So it looks like if I was there, I'm thinking you could actually go on and walk up and down, and then you would get a real sense for the size of the place, how big it was. I mean, it must have been huge, because I'm pretty sure we're talking about horses coming in the entranceway here, right? It's hard to get an idea of the scale of it from the computer. Here we go, entrance F. So the inner part was all originally unroofed, was open, but this outer wall would have had vaults over the top, stone arches over the top of the entranceways. Can we go inside? You can actually go in and have a look around. Imagine that, I'm a gladiator standing in the middle looking around. Wow. Obviously it doesn't have quite the same impact as the theatre in Cartagena, which is incredible. Again, linked above, totally recommend that if you're heading down to Spain. But this is still pretty cool. I mean, the fact that it's been preserved there like this, left for nature still to grow it, but that structure's still there as well, so you can understand and imagine what it would have looked like. So it consisted of an arena, an oval on a plain, surrounded by the seats and tiers, and then the entrances for the performers and the spectators. Where would I, as a pleb, where would I be sitting? Would I even be allowed in? Probably I'd be serving the peanuts. The performers would have been gladiators in all their uniforms, and others would have been animals. I'm guessing the animals haven't chosen to be there, and so the animals were baited and tortured, as were many prisoners. Sometimes horse racing would take place here, but they also had a circus or a hippodrome that would be for the horse racing. Wow, it says here that sometimes they actually flooded it and they had sea fights. So I'm not sure what that involves. whether it's some kind of like Roman water volleyball type thing, or they dressed up as mermaids, or they put dolphins in there to bait them and hunt them down. I don't know, but that's pretty interesting. In Roman times, the grass actually would have been sand or fine gravel, so that they had a secure foothold. You've got gladiators and you've got animals fighting each other. They really don't want to be slipping over. So what it was telling me there was that these seating areas here probably were wooden benches. They're saying that was probably temporary, that if they had stayed longer in the area, they would have built that in stone, but they just couldn't make it in Wales. They couldn't make it in the United Kingdom. They went back home. There would have been a drain around the outside for washing away probably the blood and the gore. Okay, I think that's all my information panels on this one. I can't really go any further. You know, bread and circuses, it's definitely a social mechanism, keeping control, keeping power, keeping people together, keeping them entertained, but letting them know what it is that they should find entertaining. Yeah, that was interesting. Okay, that was cool. Let me know what you think. Is this something you would do if you were visiting another country? You've come to enjoy its sights and sounds and it's pouring down with rain outside. Would you jump on a virtual tour? Or is it something you would do in advance to know which sites to visit and which you probably are not that interested in? Love to hear your thoughts. Leave me a comment down below, and while you're there, don't forget to hit subscribe and the notifications bell. Would really love you to come along and join our journey, be part of our community. Next, we're off to Anglesey, weather permitting. Really hope you'll join us there. Until then, happy travels everyone.